Ladies and gentlemen, life is full of challenges, and no matter how much we try to avoid it, we will inevitably encounter moments where others will hurt us. It's an unfortunate reality. People will say things, do things, or make choices that sting, that leave us feeling vulnerable and exposed. But here's the truth. The power doesn't lie in what others do to us. The power lies in how we choose to respond. You see, the instinctive reaction when we're hurt is to lash out, to strike back in defense, to make the person who hurt us feel the pain we're feeling. It's a natural urge, a knee-jerk response, but it's a trap. In that moment, you're giving up control. You're allowing someone else's actions to determine your emotional state. If you respond in anger, in hurt, or with retaliation, you're playing into the hands of the very person who has wronged you. You've given them control over your peace. Think about it. When you react impulsively, you're just as lost in the moment as the person who hurt you. You're not in a place of clarity. You're not thinking about long-term consequences. You're simply a slave to the situation, to the emotional turmoil of that instant. And here's the real kicker. In many cases, the person who hurt you might not even realize the impact of their actions. They might not care, so if you react, you're not only losing your peace, but also wasting energy on someone who's probably not worth it. The key is to pause, to step back from the situation, and give yourself the space to process. This doesn't mean you suppress your emotions or bottle them up. What it means is that you take a breath and let yourself regain composure. In that moment of stillness, you allow your higher self, your rational mind, to take charge. Remember, it's not the hurt that defines us, but how we choose to respond to it. Reacting in anger only perpetuates the cycle of negativity. But if you choose not to react, if you choose to walk away, or if you choose to respond with calm understanding, you regain your strength. You keep your peace, and you demonstrate to yourself and others that you are the master of your own emotional destiny. Your response will ultimately shape who you are. The way you respond to hurt determines your emotional state, not the actions of others. Control lies in your response, not in reacting impulsively. Reacting out of anger or hurt only gives up your control. It's an emotional trap that leads to further turmoil without solving the problem. Taking a moment to pause and regain composure allows you to respond from a place of calm and clarity, not from immediate emotional reactivity. Reacting impulsively might feel satisfying momentarily, but it often leads to negative consequences. Choosing not to react helps preserve your peace and stability. The key to overcoming hurt is learning emotional self-control. Your response, not the hurt itself, defines your strength and emotional resilience. The way you respond to hurt is the key to your emotional freedom. It is a simple yet profound truth that so many of us overlook in the heat of the moment. When someone hurts us, whether it's through a harsh word, a betrayal, or even an unjust action, it's easy to feel like we have no control over our emotions. It's as if their behavior has triggered something within us that we can't manage. However, the real truth is that we always have the power to control how we respond. In fact, that control is where our true power lies. If you allow yourself to react impulsively, to lash out in the moment, then you've essentially handed the reins of your emotional state to the person who hurt you. When you react in anger, frustration, or sadness, you've allowed that individual, through their actions, to dictate how you feel. The problem with this is that it places you in a vulnerable position. You're no longer acting from a place of self-control and clarity, but rather from a knee-jerk emotional response that can often make things worse. Reacting in the moment only serves to perpetuate the negative cycle, further entangling you in emotional chaos. However, when you recognize that your response is entirely in your control, you begin to unlock a new level of emotional maturity. You don't have to immediately respond to the hurt you've received. Instead, You can take a step back and give yourself the time and space needed to process your emotions. The space between the stimulus, the thing that hurt you, and your response is where your power lies. It's the moment of pause where you can decide how to react, and more importantly, whether you should react at all. Taking a moment to pause before responding does not mean suppressing your feelings or pretending that the hurt doesn't matter. It simply means allowing yourself to process the situation before reacting impulsively. In this pause, you give yourself the opportunity to engage with your feelings, to examine the nature of the hurt, and to assess whether a reaction will help or harm you in the long run. Often, in that pause, you'll realize that responding in the heat of the moment will only escalate the situation and cause further pain, not resolution. It's important to understand that we are not powerless when we feel hurt. In fact, it's in those very moments that our true strength is tested. Your ability to control your response is a reflection of your inner strength. The challenge is not to avoid feeling hurt, but to not let that hurt control you. You can acknowledge the pain, the injustice, or the frustration, but you don't have to let it dictate your actions. By mastering this skill, you cultivate a profound sense of inner peace. You stop being a puppet to your emotional impulses and start being the master of your own experience. One of the key factors in this process is self-awareness. When you pause, you allow yourself to become more aware of what's really happening inside you. What are you feeling? Why are you feeling it? Are you reacting based on past experiences? Or is this moment truly about what just happened? This self-awareness enables you to respond in a way that is aligned with your values, rather than responding in a way that is purely reactive. You begin to realize that your emotional state is not solely determined by external circumstances, but can be shaped by your internal reaction. Over time, as you practice this kind of emotional awareness and response, you'll notice that you become less and less influenced by the actions of others. Instead of being controlled by what someone says or does, you'll find yourself responding with greater equanimity and clarity. You may even find that the things that once triggered an immediate emotional outburst no longer have that power over you. This shift happens gradually as you begin to internalize the fact that your emotional well-being is in your hands. Moreover, by taking control of how you respond to hurt, you become more effective in navigating difficult situations. The instinct to react may always be there, but with practice, the pause becomes second nature. You become less impulsive and more strategic in your actions. This not only benefits you emotionally, but also strengthens your relationships. People will respect you more when they see that you are not easily provoked. You show them that you are not just a person who reacts, but someone who chooses their actions thoughtfully, no matter the external circumstances. By focusing on how you respond, you begin to shift the narrative away from being a passive participant in your emotional experiences to becoming an active, empowered individual. This empowerment stems from your ability to choose how to engage with your emotions. It's not that the hurt will never come at will, inevitably, but your power lies in deciding how much influence that hurt will have over your life. When you stop reacting immediately, you stop letting others control your peace, and you take back control of your emotional state. In the end, this choice to not react becomes a defining trait of your character. You demonstrate to yourself and to those around you that your inner peace is not contingent upon the actions of others. You do not allow the actions or words of others to define your worth, your emotional state, or your future. Instead, you respond thoughtfully with awareness and purpose, and that response shapes who you are and the life you lead. This mastery over your response becomes not just a survival mechanism, but a pathway to profound growth and emotional resilience. Reacting impulsively when someone hurts you is a natural response, one that almost everyone experiences at some point in their life. The immediate urge to defend yourself, to get back at the person who wronged you, or to express your anger right then and there is a powerful instinct. It's instinctual because it stems from deep within us, a primal desire to protect our dignity, our sense of self, and to establish boundaries. But this instinct, while deeply ingrained in human nature, often leads to outcomes that are not in our best interest. When we allow ourselves to react impulsively, we hand over control of our emotions to the very situation or person who hurt us. In that moment, the person who wronged you has the power to dictate your emotional state, and by reacting in anger or frustration, you lose the opportunity to exercise emotional maturity and strength. The problem with impulsive reactions is that they often come from a place of heightened emotion, where rationality takes a backseat. In the heat of the moment, when hurt, frustration, or anger clouds our judgment, our responses tend to be knee-jerk. We say things we don't mean, do things we regret, and perpetuate a cycle of negativity that only exacerbates the situation. In those moments, we're not acting from a place of wisdom or clarity. We're merely reacting to our emotions, and emotions in those moments can be volatile and destructive. One of the fundamental truths we must acknowledge is that reacting impulsively doesn't resolve the issue. It often makes things worse. The initial pain of being hurt by someone is compounded by the emotional fallout of our own reactions. Whether it's a harsh word, a hurtful action, or an unjust treatment, when we lash out in retaliation, we create an environment of conflict and further tension. Instead of dealing with the original problem, we add another layer of emotional chaos that clouds any chance of resolution. Think about a time when someone hurt you, and you responded immediately with anger, bitterness, or frustration. What did that accomplish? Did the situation improve? Did the person who hurt you come to a deeper understanding of their actions? Did you feel better after reacting? Most likely, the answer to all of these questions is no. In fact, the situation may have escalated, and the hurt you initially felt may have been compounded by the consequences of your own reaction. Instead of healing or resolving the conflict, you may have found yourself caught up in a cycle of bitterness, regret, or even more hurt. When we react impulsively, we also miss the opportunity to gain perspective on the situation. By responding immediately, we forego the chance to reflect on the motivations of the person who hurt us, or even to consider our own role in the interaction. Often, hurtful actions or words come from a place of misunderstanding, frustration, or external pressures. The person who hurt you might be dealing with their own emotional battles, which may have nothing to do with you. But when you react impulsively, you fail to see that broader picture. Instead of responding to the person and the situation with clarity, you're simply acting on raw emotion, which may not be the most accurate or effective way to deal with the hurt. This cycle of impulsive reactions can be draining. Over time, constantly reacting to the hurt of others without pausing to assess the situation takes a toll on your emotional well-being. You become trapped in a state of constant defense, where every interaction feels like an emotional battlefield. This emotional exhaustion erodes your sense of peace, making it harder to enjoy the present moment or move past situations that should have been resolved long ago. On the flip side, if you can learn to step back and avoid reacting impulsively, you create the space necessary for reflection and understanding. The first step in breaking the habit of impulsive reactions is awareness. You need to recognize the urge to react when it arises. In those moments, it's critical to pause, take a deep breath, and give yourself the time to process. This moment of stillness is crucial because it allows you to regain control of the situation. You're no longer a passive participant in your emotional experience. You become an active one, deciding whether a reaction is necessary, and if it is, how to respond in a manner that is constructive rather than destructive. By choosing not to react immediately, you give yourself the chance to approach the situation with a clear mind. You have the opportunity to ask yourself, what do I really want to achieve here? What outcome am I seeking? More often than not, The desired outcome isn't to hurt the other person or to escalate the situation. Instead, it's usually to communicate effectively, to assert your boundaries, or to express your feelings in a way that fosters understanding rather than conflict. When you choose to pause and reflect, you also gain the ability to assess the impact of your actions. In an emotionally charged moment, it's easy to forget the long-term consequences of our words and actions. Reacting in anger may provide temporary satisfaction, but it can create lasting damage to relationships, reputations, and even your own emotional well-being. A thoughtful response, on the other hand, has the potential to heal, to bridge gaps, and to lead to deeper understanding. It might not offer immediate gratification, but it will provide a sense of integrity and emotional peace that impulsive reactions never can. Choosing not to react impulsively is an act of emotional maturity. It is a recognition that our emotional well-being is not governed by external forces, but by the decisions we make in response to those forces. Instead of letting someone else's behavior control our emotional state, we take charge of how we feel and how we engage with the world around us. This shift in mindset is one of the most powerful tools you can develop in your journey toward emotional resilience and peace. Taking a moment to pause before reacting is perhaps one of the most transformative actions you can take in any emotionally charged situation. It may seem like a simple act, but its impact on your emotional well-being and your relationships is profound. We live in a world that is fast-paced, where reactions are often immediate, and the pressure to respond quickly is high. Whether it's in personal relationships at work or in social interactions, there is often an expectation that we should react quickly, defend ourselves immediately, or provide an answer right away. However, taking that moment to pause and reflect before reacting can make all the difference between a constructive response and one driven by raw emotion that leads to regret. In many cases, when we are hurt or upset, our first instinct is to immediately react. Our emotions surge and the mind races with thoughts of how to defend ourselves, how to strike back, or how to make the person who hurt us understand the pain they've caused. Yet, in that moment of emotional overload, our thinking becomes clouded. The desire for a quick response is often driven by a need for validation, a need to assert our dignity, or a desire for resolution, none of which are served by hasty reactions. By taking a step back and allowing ourselves a brief moment of pause, we create the space necessary to move from a reactive emotional state to a more thoughtful, rational one. When we pause before responding, we allow ourselves the opportunity to reflect on the situation from a broader perspective. In the heat of the moment, we are often too close to the issue to see it clearly. We may only see the hurt, the injustice, or the frustration, but we lose sight of the full context. The person who hurt you may be dealing with their own pain, confusion, or challenges. Their actions may have nothing to do with you personally, but in the heat of the moment, it can be difficult to separate their behavior from your own emotional state. Taking a pause gives you the time to consider this larger context and ask yourself, is this really about me, or is it about something else they are going through? This kind of reflection allows you to avoid jumping to conclusions based solely on your emotions. Furthermore, pausing before reacting helps you avoid making decisions you might regret. We've all been in situations where a rash comment or a quick outburst led to further conflict, damaged relationships, or left us feeling ashamed. Once words are spoken or actions are taken, they cannot be undone. In the heat of the moment, we might say something we don't mean or act in a way that we later regret. By pausing, we give ourselves the time to think through what we want to say or do, and whether it will help resolve the situation or just escalate it. Taking a moment to pause also allows us to engage with our emotions in a healthier way. Emotions are powerful, and they can be overwhelming. They serve as signals, alerting us to something important, whether it's a need for self-preservation, a desire to be heard, or a boundary that's been crossed. But emotions, if left unchecked, can also cloud our judgment and lead us to make decisions based purely on how we feel in that particular moment. A pause allows us to acknowledge our emotions, but also to consider them in context. Instead of acting on impulse, we can ask ourselves, what am I really feeling and why? This process of emotional self-awareness helps us to respond more intentionally rather than simply reacting to the moment. Another benefit of pausing before reacting is that it allows us to make a more deliberate choice about how we want to show up in the situation. We are not passive victims of our emotions or the actions of others. When we pause, we regain control over how we engage with the world around us. We decide how we want to respond, whether with calm, understanding, or assertiveness, rather than simply reacting from a place of hurt or anger. This deliberate response can be empowering. It gives us a sense of ownership over our actions and helps us align our responses with our values, rather than allowing our reactions to be controlled by the situation. The pause also allows us to be more empathetic. In many situations where we feel hurt or wronged, there is often an opportunity for understanding that we might miss in our immediate reaction. By pausing, we open ourselves up to listening more deeply to the other person's perspective. When emotions are high, it's easy to become defensive and close ourselves off to the possibility that the other person's actions may have been motivated by something other than malice. Pausing provides the opportunity to think about the other person's intentions, their emotional state, and the broader dynamics at play. This empathy can shift the focus from confrontation to collaboration, creating space for dialogue, healing, and resolution rather than conflict. When we pause before reacting, we also build a stronger sense of inner resilience. Life is full of challenging and painful situations, but how we respond to them shapes our overall emotional strength. The ability to pause and regain composure in the face of hurt or injustice is a powerful skill that strengthens us over time. Each time we resist the urge to react impulsively, we train ourselves to respond with greater composure and wisdom. This doesn't mean that we suppress our emotions or avoid dealing with them. It simply means that we allow ourselves the time to process our feelings in a way that leads to more thoughtful, constructive action. As we develop this ability, we begin to handle life's challenges with greater grace and emotional maturity. Ultimately, pausing before reacting is a simple but profound act that allows us to regain control over our emotions, improve our relationships, and make wiser decisions. It creates the space for clarity, empathy, and rationality to emerge from the chaos of immediate emotional responses. In those precious moments of stillness, we reclaim our power, choose our responses, and build emotional resilience that serves us not only in times of conflict, but in every aspect of our lives. When you find yourself hurt by someone's words or actions, it's easy to succumb to the immediate urge to respond, to seek revenge, or to express your frustration. The natural instinct is to fight back, to defend your pride, and to regain control over the situation. But in the heat of the moment, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters in the long run: your peace of mind and emotional stability. Reacting impulsively, particularly when hurt, might feel gratifying in the short term, but it rarely offers any true resolution. Instead, it often creates further tension and leaves you feeling even more unsettled. It's a cycle of negativity that drags you deeper into a storm of emotional turmoil. But if you learn to refrain from reacting immediately, you preserve your inner peace and avoid making choices that could lead to lasting regret. One of the most profound benefits of choosing not to react in the heat of the moment is that you give yourself the opportunity to prioritize long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. The initial emotional surge that accompanies hurt or frustration is powerful. It pushes you to act quickly, to release the pressure you're feeling, and to make the other person understand how wrong they were. However, the immediate reaction is often driven by a desire to feel better right now, not to resolve the situation in a meaningful way. When you give in to the urge to react, you're typically responding from a place of emotional distress, which means your response is more likely to escalate the situation or lead to an outcome that doesn't serve you or anyone involved. When you refrain from reacting, you're choosing to take the longer path, the one that might be less immediately gratifying but is far more beneficial in the long run. It's the path of patience, understanding, and clarity. It's about realizing that peace isn't always won through confrontation, but through conscious, measured responses. By choosing not to react in the moment, you prevent further damage to your emotional state, your relationships, and your peace of mind. You avoid adding more fuel to the fire, and instead, you create the opportunity for reflection and a thoughtful resolution. It's important to recognize that reacting in anger or hurt does not lead to productive outcomes. More often than not, it merely fuels the emotional cycle, drawing you deeper into negativity. When we react impulsively, we're often defending our egos, reacting to how we've been hurt or wronged, rather than looking at the situation with a clear, objective mind. That's why it's easy to fall into patterns of escalation, where both parties end up feeling even more entrenched in their positions, and any chance of resolution slips further away. By holding off on reacting immediately, you grant yourself the time to detach from the emotional reaction and consider the situation more fully. This gives you the space to think about what you really want to achieve. Do you want to hurt the other person as they hurt you? Do you want to prove that you were right and they were wrong? Or do you want to preserve your peace, protect your emotional stability, and find a way to resolve the situation in a way that promotes healing, understanding, and growth? In that moment of pause, you have the ability to choose the response that serves your long-term well-being rather than one driven by temporary emotion. Choosing not to react is also an act of emotional maturity. It's the ability to step back, to separate yourself from the immediate emotional charge, and to respond with wisdom even when it's difficult. It requires self-discipline and a deep understanding that your peace is more important than the need to react. It's about recognizing that reacting impulsively gives up your power. It places your emotional state in the hands of someone else, and you allow their actions to determine your feelings. By resisting the urge to react, you take back control. You become the one in charge of your emotions and your response to the situation. When you prioritize long-term peace over short-term gratification, you also begin to build stronger, healthier relationships. People are drawn to those who remain calm in the face of adversity, who don't react in anger or frustration, but instead choose to respond thoughtfully. This type of emotional composure inspires respect and trust. Others will feel safe around you because they know that your responses will be measured and intentional, rather than impulsive and potentially damaging. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings or never express yourself, but rather that you take the time to express yourself in a way that fosters understanding rather than creating further conflict. Another significant advantage of prioritizing long-term peace is that it allows you to preserve your emotional resources. When you react immediately to every hurt or injustice, you deplete your emotional reserves. Constantly defending yourself, reacting to negative situations, and engaging in conflict drains your energy and undermines your mental and emotional well-being. By choosing not to react impulsively, you conserve your energy for what truly matters. You create space for reflection, self-care, and constructive action. This way, when you do decide to respond, you can do so with the emotional energy and clarity needed to approach the situation in a way that serves your long-term peace and well-being. In addition, prioritizing peace helps you grow emotionally. Each time you choose to pause rather than react, you become more skilled at managing your emotions. You develop a greater understanding of yourself, your triggers, and your emotional landscape. You begin to recognize that emotional reactions don't define you, but how you choose to respond does. This sense of self-awareness builds over time, leading to greater emotional intelligence and resilience. The choice to prioritize long-term peace over immediate satisfaction is at its core a choice to value yourself. It's about recognizing that you are worthy of peace, that your emotional state is valuable, and that your inner calm is more important than reacting in the moment. This conscious choice to cultivate peace not only benefits you personally, but it also positively impacts those around you. You model emotional strength, maturity, and self-control, which encourages others to do the same. In this way, your decision not to react immediately contributes to a culture of understanding, patience, and emotional growth, both within yourself and in the relationships you nurture. The ability to master your emotions is one of the most valuable skills you can develop in life. It is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending that hurt doesn't affect you. Rather, it is about understanding that your emotional responses are within your control, and that controlling them is a powerful form of strength. Emotional mastery doesn't happen overnight. It is a gradual process that involves recognizing, accepting, and ultimately choosing how to respond to the world around you. In the face of hurt, frustration, or conflict, the most important thing is to recognize that the way you react will shape not only your emotional state, but also your character and your life experiences. Learning emotional mastery requires acknowledging that your emotional state is not defined by external circumstances or the actions of others. It's natural to feel hurt when someone wrongs you, but how you handle that hurt is what truly defines you. The more you give in to reactive emotional responses, the more you allow those external factors to dictate your internal peace. This is why emotional mastery is so crucial. It places you in the driver's seat of your own emotional experience, rather than allowing other people or situations to have that power. One of the foundational aspects of emotional mastery is self-awareness. Understanding what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and how those feelings are influencing your thoughts and actions is key to managing your emotions. When someone hurts you, it's easy to be swept away by anger or sadness, but emotional mastery involves taking a step back and recognizing what you're experiencing. It's important to ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is this emotional reaction helping me? What do I want to achieve in this situation? These questions help you break free from emotional reactions that don't serve you and give you the space to respond in a more balanced and constructive way. Another critical aspect of emotional mastery is the ability to control your impulses. In moments of hurt, your natural instinct might be to lash out, to get back at the person who hurt you, or to express your anger in a way that makes you feel heard or validated. However, reacting impulsively often leads to negative consequences. When you control your impulses, you allow yourself the time and space to reflect before responding. This pause gives you the opportunity to choose a response that aligns with your values and long-term goals, rather than reacting in a way that is driven purely by emotion. The more you practice emotional mastery, the more you develop a sense of emotional resilience. Life is full of challenges, and hurtful situations are inevitable. People will disappoint you, misunderstand you, and sometimes intentionally hurt you. However, emotional resilience means that you don't let these situations define your emotional state. It doesn't mean you won't feel pain, but it does mean that you won't let that pain dictate your reactions. You understand that difficult situations are temporary, and you have the strength to navigate them without losing yourself in the process. Emotional mastery is also closely tied to self-regulation, the ability to control your emotional responses and to direct your actions in a way that is aligned with your values. Self-regulation allows you to stay calm in difficult situations, to maintain composure when faced with challenges, and to respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively. It's about not letting your emotions take the reins, but rather choosing to act in a way that is grounded in reason and long-term goals. This self-regulation is what allows you to avoid unnecessary conflict, to manage stress effectively, and to navigate the ups and downs of life with greater ease. Moreover, emotional mastery helps you to develop empathy and compassion for others. When you are able to manage your own emotions, you are better equipped to understand and respond to the emotions of others. This empathy allows you to handle difficult conversations with more grace, to avoid escalating conflicts, and to offer support to those around you in a way that is both meaningful and constructive. Emotional mastery doesn't just benefit you, it also improves your relationships with others, because you become someone who can stay calm and rational in the face of tension, offering a sense of stability and understanding that others can rely on. As you develop emotional mastery, you also build a deeper sense of inner peace. The more you are able to control your emotional responses, the less likely you are to be swayed by external circumstances or the actions of others. This inner peace comes from a profound understanding that your emotional state is yours to shape. You no longer feel at the mercy of other people's words or actions. You understand that you can experience hurt or disappointment, but you can also choose to let go of those feelings and not let them control your behavior. This emotional detachment from external circumstances leads to greater mental clarity and emotional freedom. Emotional mastery also involves learning how to express your emotions in healthy and productive ways. This means finding ways to communicate your feelings constructively rather than bottling them up or unleashing them in anger. Healthy emotional expression is an essential part of emotional intelligence. It involves understanding when and how to express your emotions, and doing so in a way that fosters understanding and growth, rather than conflict. When you are emotionally intelligent, you know how to navigate your own emotions while also respecting the emotional experiences of others. Finally, emotional mastery leads to greater overall well-being. When you are in control of your emotions, you experience less stress, anxiety, and frustration. You are better equipped to handle the challenges that life throws at you and to move through difficult times without allowing them to define you. This emotional stability enhances your mental and physical health, contributing to a sense of fulfillment and happiness that comes from being in alignment with yourself and your values. The more you practice emotional mastery, the more you create a life that is less reactive and more proactive, filled with intentional actions and thoughtful responses. In the end, mastering your emotions is not about avoiding pain or discomfort, but about learning how to navigate those feelings with grace and resilience. It's about understanding that you have the power to choose how you respond to the world around you, and that in doing so, you can shape a life that is filled with peace, emotional freedom, and inner strength. In life, we are all bound to encounter moments of hurt, frustration, and conflict. It is in these moments that our true strength is tested, not through the impulse to react, but through the ability to pause, reflect, and choose a response that aligns with our values and long-term peace. The path to emotional mastery is not an easy one, but it is one that empowers us to regain control over our emotions and reactions. By choosing not to react impulsively, by prioritizing long-term peace over short-term satisfaction, and by mastering our emotions with patience and self-awareness, we unlock a deeper sense of inner strength and resilience. Remember, your peace is your responsibility. The power to shape your emotional state, to preserve your integrity, and to foster meaningful relationships is within you. You are not defined by the actions of others, but by the way you choose to respond. So, the next time you're faced with a challenge, take a step back, breathe, and remember, your ability to choose your response is the greatest tool you have in creating a life of emotional freedom and lasting peace.